my video. We got to get this thing going. Let's do it, everybody. Welcome to Books and Bars. My name is Jeff. Hopefully you've been with us before, but if you haven't, love to have you here for the first time. I've placed some information in the chat about how we do it. It's fairly simple. Ideally, you remain muted until you raise your hand, and then I call on you, unmute you, and make your comment, ask your question. There are a little blue hand, like in the participant button that you can raise, and then it'll list everyone whose hands are up in the order that they raise them, and I will go through in order. And if you haven't spoken before, you do get preference over someone who's raised their hand for the second time. So hopefully everyone that wants to talk gets a chance to tonight. I see Elaine is with us, and Elaine is from the Friends of the St. Paul Library, and they are one of our favorite sponsors. They've been sponsoring us now for over 9 years since we started our live events at Amsterdam in St. Paul. Hopefully one day we will return to live in-person events when we're allowed to. But for now, we're going to continue with our videos like this. And Elaine, if you're ready, I'd love to have you tell us your message that you want to share with us tonight.
Great. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you here. And we at the Friends are really thrilled to continue our sponsorship of Books and Bars. This has been a fantastic partnership with Jeff and for us. And it's a great way to connect with different readers every month. So on behalf of the Friends, welcome. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I just want to put in a plug for a series of events that we've been doing for 27 years now. We are approaching the 27th annual Fireside Reading Series, which you may be familiar with. It usually takes place at the Hamlin Midway Branch Library in St. Paul, but this year it'll be virtual. Yes, thank you for the props. I'm going to put a link to these events in the chat. It's really an exciting lineup. Kaukalia Yang is kicking us off this year with her new book, Somewhere in the Unknown World, a collective refugee memoir, and I am about a third of the way into it, and it's really, really incredible. We have who else do we have? We have Hyde Erdrich, we have Yelena Bailey, a nonfiction title, How the Streets Were Made. We have Carolyn Holbrook with her essay collection, Margie Preuss, and Lynn Enger. So it's a really cool lineup, something there for everyone. Benefit of it being virtual is that you will be able to see these after the fact, so you can register and attend the events in person and be part of the Q&A, or you can catch them later. So please check it out at thefriends.org, and I'll pop the link into the whole series. So again, thanks for being here, and thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Elaine. I remember that you were interested in Anthony Horowitz and Magpie Murders. Did you get a chance to read the book and discuss it? Okay.
I have not read it again.
Okay.
So my memory might be a teensy bit fuzzy, but I'm really excited to read the next one too. So yes, I'm a big Horowitz fan of his. I've never read his middle grade or his young adult series, but I really like his mysteries. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you. You've given me a great segue to tell everyone more about Anthony Horowitz. He is the author of the best-selling teen spy series, Alex Rider, which my kids read a bit growing up, speaking of the middle grade series. He's also responsible for creating and writing some of the UK's most successful TV series, including Midsummer Murders and Foyle's War. He's written 2 Sherlock Holmes novels, The House of Silk and Moriarty, a James Bond novel called Trigger Mortis, and his most recent standalone novels are Magpie Murders and its sequel, both Sunday Times bestsellers. So he does young adult fiction, children's fiction, mystery, historical mystery, thrillers. Yeah, written quite a bit. I had read a bit of his Alex Rider stuff, like with my kids, like, so I knew about him, but I had not read this series. And there's the other one, another mystery series with The Word is Murder, and that one has a sequel also with a different detective that I have, and I'm excited to read, but I haven't started yet. So I always like to kick it off with if somebody had just finished it like today and has a really fresh take and they want to tell us what they thought of it. Maybe if you don't know what to say, you can tell us what you would give it 1 to 5 stars on Goodreads, or something you liked about it, didn't like about it. Maybe a question you have, anyone have their hand ready to go and want to kick us off tonight. Otherwise, I will keep going with other questions and comments until you guys are ready to jump in. So again, in the chat, I'll be putting some other things that for you guys to know and talk about. So oftentimes we have a separate discussion going in the chat for those people maybe that don't want to speak on the video, but don't be afraid, because you read the book and ideally you have something that you want other people to talk about with you. So be the person to bring that up and go for it. I'm wondering why I feel like Elaine's video is pinned. Did I pin you, or did no? Okay, I see Kevin's got his hand up. Kevin, talk to us. I'm unmuting you, buddy. Where are you?
Oh, there we go. I'm unmuted. Yeah,
right.
So I really enjoyed this. I think the first sort of 75% were sort of my favorite parts of it, and I don't think it came quite as well together at the end as I was hoping. I thought the Ellen Conway book and the Susan Ryland story would be more sort of interconnected than it was. And then I guess two big nitpicks that just kept really bothering me through the novel, though, were there's a lot of Apple products, which was really weird. Like, everyone had an iPhone, everyone had an iPad, everyone had a MacBook. That was weird. And I'm not sure if it was this obvious or this difficult on like ebooks or anything, but the section where there's like the written out letter, that was impossible to read for me. Like, it was like cursive handwriting, like on the physical book itself. Like, if I can find it. Yeah, I don't know how it was on the audiobook, and I don't know how it was on Kindle, but on the actual physical book itself, the part where it's the actual letter, that was just impossible to read.
Okay, so like just the typeface that they used in the
No, it was the actual part where the actual handwritten letter, like the suicide note,
yeah,
they actually show it physically in the book as like a handwritten letter.
Yeah,
and the
right.
typeface is just impossible to read. It's a nightmare.
Okay.
But yeah, otherwise I really liked it, aside from just some quibbles about the ending and those two little nitpicks.
So
yeah, it was a really enjoyable mystery.
So you said that the first 75%, but maybe the final 25 didn't come together, and the two different mysteries maybe weren't as connected as you maybe thought they might be or hoped they would be.
Yeah, I thought there would be more clear parallels, but they were both great stories on their own.
Great. So would you be interested in following the adventures of Susan?
Yes,
and
definitely.
See what happens next. And
even though I didn't like
Atticus
that much, the whole book was good enough that I'm really excited to read next.
Fantastic. Evelyn, did I see your hand up? Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I finished it today. I even like put off like turning on the news after work to finish it. That was pretty big. Yeah, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was fun. I think what I really liked about it was that it was written from an editor publishing like point of view standpoint, and I really liked her critiques of like the way authors were writing, like of the waiter, and how she was like, oh yeah, he does use too many adjectives, and his dialogue is unbelievable, and just like little things like that. And like I thought that was kind of fun. Thank you. And thanks so much. And what else? And I like that juxtaposition, because I don't read a lot of like British murder mysteries, but I watch a lot of that kind of stuff, like Marple and all of that. It's like really comforting. And yeah, and so I like that juxtaposition of the sort of tongue-in-cheek like pastiche of like what somebody who would like Agatha Christie would write, or who would want to copy Agatha Christie would write. And just like all of that was, I really liked the whole concept.
Fantastic. Yeah, I liked how Alan Conway, the author, is dealing with the feelings of, I'm not writing real literature. You know, like I'm following. He's almost like following the blueprint of Agatha Christie, and then doesn't feel like he's getting the respect that he deserves, and he's, and he wants to break out from that. And how much is Horowitz himself maybe, expressing like, he's pegged as this middle grade, writer of this like a kid James Bond is what the Alex Rider series is really. And then he ends up writing, an actual, the real James Bond novel. But I don't know. I mean, you have to wonder, and how much is he commenting on the publishing industry? And to your point about maybe you watch more of these than you read, this seems perfect for it, but it has been bought to be shot and aired for a Masterpiece PBS series, which, who knows when it'll be out because of COVID and stuff, but I think it'll be out sometime this year if it's still on track. So should be cool to check it out. I see VS has her hand up. Can I unmute you? Talk to us.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you for picking it. I really enjoyed this book a lot, and I haven't read anything by this author before, but I was really, he was on my list because I absolutely love Foyle's War. I've watched every single episode of every season, and I might watch it all again. I don't know, but I loved it. So this book, yeah, really, really enjoyed it. I liked the dual aspect of it, the two-book aspect of it. And hearkening back to Kevin's comment about the connections, yes, the second book was really a completely different story about Susan and so forth. However, I think the connections were mainly just those insights into figuring out what was going on in Alan Conway's mind when he wrote the book, getting into his background, all the parallels with his own life and how they work their way into the fiction, which, every fiction writer brings in aspects of their life, but this author certainly did an awful lot of that. And he had an awful lot of difficult stuff he was trying to work through. But anyway, the other thing I liked was, just as an aside, I don't read very much in this genre, the whodunits, the Golden Age mysteries. So therefore, I don't know if anyone here really could figure out who did everything. I am really bad at that. I just have not read many of these books. I always feel kind of like I should be able to figure it out because I love puzzles. I go over all the clues in my head, but I really have difficulty figuring them out. But one thing that helped me and boosted my ego on this whole thing was when we got to Susan's story, right in one of her first chapters, she says she's the editor. She's read tons of whodunits. Of course, she edits Alan Conway, and she said she never gets who did it. So that kind of made me feel a little bit better about myself. Well, if she couldn't get it, I didn't get it. So I didn't guess who had done anything. At the end, I did think there were a couple of loose ends. The thing about, who would sit there in the office with the murderer and tell him how she figured it out and be there all alone with the murderer. That was I just knew that was going to happen. That was not a good scene for her to be laying it all out all alone in the office with him. And then of course she got it at the end. But I'm wondering about one thing, and I wonder if anyone here in the group can answer this for me. I'm sure I missed a number of things, but the business about the murderer, Charles, pulling out page 3 of the letter out of the last chapters of Alan Conway's book, the Magpie Murders book, he pulled out that section of letter and inserted it into the real letter that Alan had supposedly given him after their dinner date. And the thing that I just don't get and that wasn't explained is I felt like the Magpie Murder manuscript was typed. So if Charles, the editor, had the typed manuscript, I almost felt like she was accusing him of actually cutting it out of it and putting it into the letter. But how could he do that if it was handwritten? So throwing that question out, how did that work. And there were a couple other little things like that that puzzled me. But by and large, I really enjoyed this. I look forward to picking it up every night and reading it. And I just finished it yesterday and thoroughly enjoyed it. So good pick. Thank you.
Thanks, Bea. I see Rachel jumping in already saying he always hand wrote the first draft, I think they said. So does that answer it?
I think she was reading a typed version after he hand wrote it, or no, she was reading the whole thing handwritten.
I am not sure, and I love that we've posted to the group, so anyone that knows for sure can help answer that. But I like how you talked about that push-pull between do I want to figure it out? How come I can't figure it out? I read these, but did I miss something? And I think you want them to be so well written that the clues are there, but you didn't get them in time. But if you go back, you can see that it wasn't a stretch, but all of the pieces are there, but they were hidden well enough that you didn't catch them the first time, that sort of a thing. But I know a lot of people who read so many more of these than I do. And everyone here knows I've been trying to get into them more ever since former President Clinton talked about, like, once you get older, you can do like Sudoku puzzles or something like that. But another way to sharpen the brain is to read like really good mysteries. And it kind of it kind of works your brain in a way. And I was like, you know what? I just had not read that many of them. And my birthday's coming up, so I got to start reading these. But all right. So anyone else in the chat that can help answer Via's question? Otherwise, I see Courtney's had her hand up for a while. Courtney, talk to us. I've asked to unmute you, Courtney. May I please?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. Hi.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what's been said so far. I think I'm right with you, Kevin, in that I loved the first 75%. I just tore through it. I also don't read a lot of whodunits, but whenever I do, like, I really enjoy them because I feel like I never guess it either, and I always feel like my mind's blown. But with this one, where it lost me in the end was I didn't buy the motive of the anagram, and I didn't think that was a realistic motive for murder, especially when he was like, oh, I was trying to set up a success for my grandchild. I didn't buy any of that, and so that I feel like I kind of gave myself a pass in like, oh, I never guessed was his name Charles, because I didn't buy that as being a strong enough reason why he would do that. And then my other nitpick was, so there was the thing where Alan's neighbor was with him on the tower, and the picture, shows up of it looks like he's pushing him. And then it turns out that Charles had taken that picture, and even Susan had said at one point, like, oh, my problem with whodunits is that there's always this big coincidence that just never would have happened. And I feel like that was the big coincidence, is that, like, oh, he just happens to see them wrestling in this tower and has a camera and takes a picture. And I feel like that was all too neat and tidy. And so there were some things that just right up until the end, I was like, oh man, you had me, and then bumped it down to 4 stars with those. Big.
Well, it's interesting because maybe that was the author Horowitz saying, look, this is in the genre, and here are the conventions, and I'm pointing them out, but I'm going to do them also. That's fair. And,
yeah.
And I told you, that, and we can kind of laugh about it, like it's like and because of this is a book in a book, and in the publishing world, it's almost like we're all in on it. Like, and it's like I think mystery writers now, they almost seem to have to, they follow the patterns of the greats, but then they have to do that thing that makes it modern. Or so what's the twist on it? How's it different? Remember, we read the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and of course that one had a real twist and different aspect to it, with the the being in different bodies and seeing it from all those different perspectives, and this one being we have 2. There's the book one, and there's the real life one. I don't know, I always feel like is there a point? Are there mysteries that would, so that you would have given this 5 until a couple of things?
The motive, the picture, that one, I guess that one didn't take away from my rating. But I laughed at, okay, and I do think that's a good perspective about like, oh, we're all in on it, or like pointing that out. But I feel like that showed up at her desk. It was like one paragraph of like, oh, this is weird. And then like the very next page was like, all right, so I'm on to something new. I'm over this picture. And then it was like it didn't drive the plot at all. So I was like, why are we doing this? But yeah, I think I didn't believe the motive enough so then I didn't even feel like I was like retracing things in my mind. I was like, where did, this just came out of nowhere for me. So not in a like, oh, I should have seen it coming.
No, I remember thinking a bit like it was maybe, wow, that publisher really, doesn't, I mean, that's pretty far to go. But then I was reminded a bit of, an older favorite movie of mine by Robert Altman called The Player, where basically the head of a studio kills a young filmmaker, and it's kind of an accident, but it's like he got so angry, and it's like, why are you affected by something like this? You shouldn't go this far, but these things, it's the genre, it's
Also, I've never known a murderer, so maybe that's just how it happens.
As far as you know, we have.
As far as I know,
there's 41 participants in the chat tonight, so I hope there's none in here, but
it's a numbers
we
game.
have let's speaking of which, Amy Dirks has her hand up, so I think that's a great segue to go to my my stepsister-in-law here. So Amy, can I unmute you? Talk to us. There we go. There's like new buttons on here.
All right.
It's very exciting. How you doing?
Can you hear? I'm great. Yeah. How are you?
Good.
So like Kevin and Courtney, I was like totally on board, like the first 75%. I thought this is great. This is great. 5 stars, 5 stars. I'm not a big reader of these British whodunits. And so I thought it was just a nice change of pace for me. And then, just like Courtney, the last little bit, just kind of like it I won't say trailed off, but it just got neat and tidy, like really fast. And there, I like to solve the puzzles along the way sometimes too. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to know that the vicar was like a nudist with his wife? Like there were no signs of that. Like there were too many things withheld that I feel like you just have to sit back and wait for it. And so with that, I'm just really curious, because I haven't read a ton of this type of genre. For those of you who have read the British whodunits and that type, what are your favorites? And does this kind of fall in line with that? Because I'd like to read more, but I'd love some recos.
And just like you, Amy, that's kind of my question up top, because I'm kind of sorting through and I'm collecting some but I want to read I saw Louise Penny was brought up, and she's an author that I've heard now from a couple different people. So I haven't read Louise Penny, but I'm going to say I've heard that Louise Penny is good, but I would love to hear from some others. Put it in the chat or raise your hand and share it with us. So thank you for that, Amy, and good to see you again. Evelyn, is your hand up again or from before? But I'm going to hold because Donna has a fresh hand. So Donna, may I unmute you?
I have just.
Wait, Donna, I think we lost your audio. I can't hear you, Donna. Can you guys hear Donna?
Mm-mm.
Should we come back to you? Okay, we'll come back to Donna. Kara, are you ready?
Yeah, maybe we'll just have too many people echoing the same thing, because also kind of the ending was what took me out of it. Although I did sort of find it more amusing maybe than other people did. Like it didn't disappoint me too much. I thought the Atticus Pund anagram was like very funny, and I sort of enjoy the idea of an author that hates their creation, like the fact that Arthur Conan Doyle hated Sherlock Holmes so much, I think like is very funny. And so I don't know, and I'm just kind of curious what other people think, because like as a motivation I kept on thinking of like another like former British treasured author J.K. Rowling, and like how she turned out to be like such a like piece of shit. And like that doesn't, I mean, there are people who already didn't like Harry Potter, but like the people who like Harry Potter, many of them still like Harry Potter, and I don't feel like it's completely ruined that legacy. Maybe other people have a different opinion, but like if it came out that like someone like the author hated Atticus Pound, it's not like he was a white supremacist or anything super bad. So I just like didn't get that. And then I was like, well, like murdering the author seems like a worse way to like hurt your business if like you're relying on him so much. Like is the legacy of him after he's dead really going to be like so, I don't know. So that's kind of like my thoughts. But I'm kind of wondering if you've ever had an experience where like you've loved something a lot and then you've found something out about the author that like made you completely go back and reevaluate it, or if you can kind of like separate yourself from that. And I guess it could be like movies or TVs or music as
Yeah,
well.
I think that's a great question. And for me, more recently, it had been musicians. There are at least a couple of musicians that maybe some stuff came out about them during Me Too things. I mean, I don't know if I can name names, but like Ryan Adams, like I was a huge fan. And then the more I, heard about Ryan Adams, it sounds like maybe he wasn't the greatest guy. And he recently released like the Apology album, basically. Like it was like, I'm sorry and I love you was like the lyrics to one of the songs. And I listened to it and I was like, oh man, this is a lot. Like, I don't know. Like I wasn't ready to jump back in. And I had a friend who say, it's actually pretty good. Like, you should listen to it. But I was like, I tried listening to it, but I just wasn't feeling it yet. So I don't know, maybe at some point. And I'm interested. I mean, I was a big fan of also the comedian Louis C.K., and I thought he was brilliant and so funny and stuff. And, that's tough. Also, I'm interested to see who might be forgiven of any of these people, and what can we forgive and move past, and could people go back to liking someone and forgiving them? So those aren't author examples off the top of my head, but that one from movies, TV, and one musician that both affected me personally. But if anyone else has some, love to hear it, especially if author related. But thanks, Kara. I see Andrew and Lisa have their hands up. I'm going to unmute them. Talk to us, Andrew and Lisa.
So I really enjoyed the book. My major disappointment was not necessarily the end. I enjoyed the anagram. I thought it was clever. And the inside book was fine, particularly because I thought it was really kind of traditional British kind of, the son-in-law. And I thought that was pretty, or the son who, was trying to hide something, but ended up killing everybody that he loved as a result of trying to hide it, keep it hidden. I thought that was clever. What I thought was disappointing about the book was that a lot of these depend on you really liking the primary investigator. So the Atticus Pound character was beloved, in this whole thing. So the Susan Ryland character is the other end. And I was loving Susan Ryland all the way until the end, in which she became this total disappointment. I think her character just kind of fell apart at the end when she, confesses everything in front of the publisher, and she ends up going to Crete with her, with her boyfriend, who, I kind of felt like should have been in cahoots with the whole murder all along. I had the publisher down pat, like I knew it was him immediately. But I thought maybe the twist was going to be that Andreas or Andres or whatever his name is was in on it as well, and that turned out to not be true. And instead, she goes and runs a hotel with him. So I was disappointed in the investigator. Like I was like ready to really commit to this kind of cynical, hard-edged publishing lady who was, I was ready to like really, be into it. And then at the end, it just totally fell off. It was like, I just can't read another book with this person. I don't want to watch Susan. I don't want to read Susan Ryland #2. With respect to Kara's thing, my standard policy is that I'm cynical about all celebrity. I simply don't, J.K. Rowling was never a hero to me, and so she's not a disappointment either. I'm all in on Charles Barkley, who's not a great guy, who says that I'm not a role model. Teach your kids that celebrities aren't role models. Probably a good thing generally. Most people have pretty horrible faults. That's probably my cynical part, but yeah, definitely don't put too much hopes in the celebrity. If you put them up on a pedestal, get ready for a fall, because chances are they're not as great as you hope they are.
Yeah, it's true, and hopefully you don't have to have any tattoos removed. I mean, this Louis C.K.
Except Luke
tattoo
Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is perfect. I mean,
you mean do you mean Mark Hamill?
Don't touch Luke Skywalker.
You mean I should keep
Mark
my
Hamill,
tattoo?
exactly. He's perfect.
Yeah, I can keep my Mark Hamill tattoo because it's actually from Corvette Summer, which he did before he got too popular. So, yeah. No. Okay.
And then my recommendations, actually, I did have. I mean, I think if you want to know if you really like whodunits, I think Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is one that's worth reading because it's really a classic, and it's very good. And then you can go watch the movies too. There's several versions of that on various British TVs. But P.A. James is another kind of classic whodunit, and that takes if you've watched British police serials, that is really, it's a different thing. So, the Atticus Pound is kind of, I'm outside of the police, I'm smarter than the police, I'm assisting the police. Whereas like P.D. James tends to more focus on the actual police serial portion of it and the more common challenges that police officers or investigative detectives encounter in their daily lives and their personal lives and how they deal with disappointments and all that sort of thing. But it's still in the context of a whodunit. So P.D. James would be the one I would recommend if you were looking for something that would be, a little more modern.
Thanks. I second. I've heard great things about P.D. James and Agatha Christie. Of course, they're both on the shelf. They're ones that I think are going to be, better than most from everything that I've read. And I want to start, or not start, but go back to them maybe before I go too much forward with more of the current stuff. I see in the chat also the Kate Atkinson's Jackson Brody series. We read case histories back in the day for Books and Bars, and then we've read other Kate Atkinson, but I did enjoy that one. And the idea of pre-cell phone being a thing that, just like in a horror movie, it's scarier if there's not a cell phone, or if it is modern day, you have to knock out any cell phone abilities because it just makes it less scary when you can turn on a flashlight and call 911 and all that stuff. So the idea of a mystery being set kind of, before social media and stuff like that too, tends to, I think, make them maybe feel a little more
I did want to say that I enjoyed the book though. I mean, I enjoyed the book thoroughly. I was just a little disappointed at the end. It was a good
I hear
read.
you. I agree with you that I actually I thought Andreas was going to be part of it too. I was actually really surprised that I was like, oh, we're going with this guy. We trust him. We're going to get this. I'm like, okay, but guess what? There's book 2. There's still a chance for him to be bad. Who knows? Yeah. I haven't read book 2 yet. If anyone has, it's fairly new. The Moonlight, is it Moonlight Murder? Moonlight something. Anyway, she's in Greece with him, so who knows? Maybe. It's another Atticus Pound in the middle too. But I see Donna's back. Hopefully her audio works. Donna, let's give it a shot.
Happy New Year. Can you hear me now?
I can. Happy New Year.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I wanted to make my comments a little early because I love this group that you all remember these characters so well and can raise questions about individual characters. And I don't read many mysteries, and I've read other books since then. And like Via was saying earlier, it's just not part of what I read, but I really enjoyed reading it. But I think what I liked the most, and Jeff, you alluded to because it's a book within a book, there was kind of a meta level of looking at the mystery genre. And the parts I got the biggest kick out of actually were where it was on page 55, and one of the parts where Susan was talking about, why English villages are always a setting for so many mysteries. And I thought, yeah, it's kind of goofy. I mean, it seems like so many of the ones on PBS and so on, they're all in these little English towns. And she said how she, made the mistake of going on vacation once to a little town in England, and how it wasn't relaxing at all because she kept making, for every friend, she made 3 enemies. And people were just obsessing over things like, dog poop and hanging baskets and all that. And all that small town where everybody knows each other kind of drove people to, I think she said, psychosis and violence. And so there's automatically lots of suspects and stuff. I thought that was just a hoot because that answered a question for me. And then the part where she talked about, what it's like when she said, I wasn't a detective, I was an editor. And she never even knew people who died, hardly, let alone people that were murdered, and how books and TV are so full of murders that you get a whole different idea about life and society and so on, and how the narrative would never survive without all those murders. And what attracts us, is it the crime or is it the solution? I thought, well, yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious, people that read a lot of murder mysteries, what attracts them about that. And I love the part where the detective superintendent was talking with her about how, hey, you know what? We solve crimes because of DNA and because people do stupid things. And it's not sitting around and asking all these really great questions and having these reveals like in, mystery novels and stuff. I thought that was a good dose of reality. And because they have CCTV everywhere that catches people in the act. And then finally, the other part I'll mention is just the part which somebody else already mentioned about how she talks about how much she loves, Susan, you talked about reading mysteries and how really they're all about truth. And you have the detective as kind of a unique character in all of literature, and how this constant pursuit of the truth, and how there's such a satisfying ending always because the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and how so little in our lives are like that it's satisfying that way. So I just think there were some kind of overarching commentary in this book that was satisfying to me, just understanding the genre. So I appreciated reading it. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your comments. And I do think, if it becomes a bit of a gateway that then, makes you want to explore a few others, that's great. And I like the point about the English village and why, for every, you make that many enemies and it leads you to violence. But yeah, it's so true. I mean, the amount of things that we read and watch that do not at all reflect, our everyday existence. I mean, but that's for a lot of us, we want something different, right? We want the escape. We don't just want to read about, being quarantined and watching the news all day. So I see Pete, our co-host, had his hand up. But Pete, are you with us? Are you ready to talk? Does it all work? Talk to us, Pete.
Yeah, no, I wasn't as down on the ending as everyone else because, it got to wrap it up somehow. And so I just kind of went with it. I did like the whole book, but I guess like a lot of folks, I don't read mysteries a lot, but I did like the thing that she did. This particular one was great, especially for people who aren't reading mysteries. I felt like it was like an episode of that show Community where they're just deconstructing the whole mystery thing and they're just making fun of it and making fun of the tropes and then doing the tropes. And she's confronting the killer at the end. That cracked me up. And then she makes the mistake of like not lying to him and saying, yeah, no, I notified everyone. They're coming in 2 minutes to take you in, or whatever it was that would have saved her. But and then I thought it was, it's campy but cute that the boyfriend was bringing her flowers to say he was sorry, and then ended up saving her life because he was admitting that he was being a jerk or whatever. But that stuff campy but cute. But but overall the writing was really good, I thought. And the thing, no one's brought up yet, but the fact that they killed that little dog, that really bugs me. And, and especially because the dog probably trusted Rob too, that went with him. But yeah, but on the whole, it was, and I thought it was going to be that cop in town. That I thought because he hated detectives, private detectives, and I thought, oh, he's got it out for him. He did it, and but it wrapped up, and I don't know. I was satisfied, and then to the point of like, if the artist is a bad person, convo that's going on in the chat. I've kind of landed on where, all right, if the art stands on its own, I'll let it. Like, if I listen to Thriller, I'm not going to think of Michael Jackson's misdeeds or something, but I'm still on the edge. I mean, and I didn't know this about J.K. Rowling, and especially with Star Trek Discovery, the latest season, introducing the first really cool trans character in modern TV. I thought that's really cool, and so yeah, I'd hope in our fiction, our art, we'd take the improving the human condition to another level. So I'll reward artists that are cool in their own life too. So I think that's all right. So my 2 cents, Jeff.
Thanks, Pete. I think what I'm hearing is the next time we do a mystery, if possible, for Books and Bars, we should do as pure a one as possible. Maybe go back to maybe even an older one as a possibility, or at least one that doesn't have a meta aspect to it or a gimmick. At least I feel the last two had such, a hook or a twist to them, which maybe I think, everyone, it's not just a mystery, it's this, and then it helps justify more of a discussion with a book club. But there's one I'm interested in. I don't know if it has a gimmick. I don't think it does, but it's called The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Has anyone read any Lucy Foley? It's getting some really good reviews. It sounds interesting. I've been wanting to read her stuff, and I guess this one is like, it goes, and I don't think it's a gimmick, but you get the perspective of a bunch of the different characters, and so it's not just like from the detective's POV or something, but it jumps around to a point where you think it's this person until you read this person's thing, and then you think it's them, and it's all like they're all guests at a wedding, I believe, and someone dies. But
that sounds really familiar. I wonder if
it's
some other book
new.
club.
Yeah, Lucy Foley, I believe, is her name, and The Guest List, and she's written a few other popular ones.
Another one that just came out there recently is The Hunting Party, is another one that's pretty popular by her right now as well.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
what could go wrong with The Hunting Party, right?
I mean, yeah, you might shoot your friend in the face. I mean, it happens.
Dick Cheney on me.
Evelyn's hand keeps going up and down, so I'm not sure if she wants to talk or not. So, Kara, your hand is consistent. May I unmute you?
Yeah. I guess this is kind of going back to like one of the first question I asked, but thinking of like mystery novels, I don't read a ton of those, but I do love like mystery shows and procedurals like that. And I still like them and I still watch them. But like one thing, that I've kind of been thinking of for years, but especially like this summer, I feel like it's become a discussion, is like propaganda and things like that. And so I'm wondering if anyone else who likes mysteries and who likes mystery shows, if that has impacted your viewing or how you think of things. Like I still enjoy quite a lot of true crime, and I probably will go back to Brooklyn Nine-Nine when they come back, and I really love Elementary, which is the American Sherlock Holmes with Lucy Liu. I love that show, so I still watch a lot of that stuff, but it's always kind of in the back of my mind, and I don't know, maybe some of these classic British novels escape that scrutiny because like police have like such minimal involvement, but so I'm just kind of curious if that's been a thing that people have been dealing with at all, like this year or prior.
Again, I would love to hear from others what they think about that, but you nailed one of the examples that I've been thinking about, and I think they've even commented saying, if B99 comes back, it might be very different. They're kind of struggling with, they're going back to the drawing board, and they might do something like I think it'd be really wild if they came back, the entire cast, and it was just like a different setting, and it was like a reboot or something. I don't know what's, there's some storylines obviously they want to continue, but it's going to be harder to watch certain things without thinking about current times. Much in the same way though that I don't necessarily want to. I don't want to hear stuff like furlough and social distancing in my movies and TV yet. You know what I mean? Like I don't really want to watch stuff about what we're in still and dealing with. But it's going to start creeping into it, I think. I mean, but I don't know. I think I'd rather watch something that doesn't have that in there. I mean, if it's a documentary, whatever, I get it. That's why I'm here. But I don't know. Someone was saying the other day, like some trailer for some new movie was the first to use the word furlough. Like, oh, now we're hearing it, and it's in movies, that are coming out now. So. Evelyn's hand is back up. I'm going to believe she's actually ready this time. I'm going to ask to unmute her and say, Evelyn.
Hi. Yeah. Twins. I had a few things. I thought it was really, Kara, your question is really interesting. And right, part of it sort of connects to what Donna was saying too, with that comment in the book on how the main investigator, right, is the bringer of truth, right? And like they are the ones that you follow and they have the truth and like hopefully also like the integrity when it comes to solving the crime. And I think a big part of a lot of these, at least the ones I see on TV, these procedurals, is because they're so focused on the truth. A lot of times these investigators are sort of the black sheep of their their police community, because they're refusing to hide certain things that they might want to like brush under the table, like corruption or whatever. Or in the case of Luther, they're breaking the law for their own agenda. Luther is maybe a little bit different. but yeah, so like I can see how I can see how that makes it hard. What I can also see is that like this also brings an opportunity to like address these issues of like bad cops, maybe through like the heroism of like, or the guide of the truth finding investigator, the main guy, who maybe can uncover like such things as like racism or whatever within their work. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll be interested to see what happens. I also wanted to address the part in the book where like how Charles's motive was a little bit unbelievable. I think they tried to make it a little bit more believable by mentioning that one-armed juggler had said like some bad things in like an interview, and that his autobiography or whatever had been spurned by the public because of certain comments he made in an interview. So like the company was already heading in that wrong direction of having like bad press, and that could have made things much worse. Yeah.
Good point. And back to the other point, like I mean, I can't watch Dukes of Hazzard anymore, and they're not even cops. It's just, they got to paint that car. I mean, the hood of that car is just unacceptable. I thought that was a cool car when I was a kid. Now I'm worried because our next hand is Maura, and Maura last time was willing to take on the mantle as our new hater. And if all of you didn't like the last 25% of the book, I'm fully expecting Maura to like, maybe even less of a percentage of this book. So let's find out. Maura, I'm unmuting you. Are you hating?
Well, it's
or are you loving?
New me. I was when this was the next one, I was like, no, I had already read it and I really enjoyed this book, and didn't, outside of just the like, yeah, you have to suspend disbelief. It's not like, it didn't make me cry with beauty. It was very entertaining. What I wanted to get to the point of kind of propaganda is one thing I love about like Miss Marple and Agatha Christie is that it's always like the cops are bumbling idiots. And like Miss Marple, this little old lady has to come in and be like, you idiots, like this is what's happening. Which is part of why I mean, it's problematic in other areas, but I've always really enjoyed how it's kind of like people on the outskirts, like Sherlock Holmes was like a savant and had like cocaine addiction and was still like this brilliant guy that when the cops were like, oh, we don't know how to do our job, let's bring in someone that actually can. And I think that is part of what has appealed to me, and especially the older kind of murder mysteries, is it is almost very much like cops don't know what they're doing. When it comes to actually solving like crime, they have to bring in somebody else, or they have to rely on the wit of somebody else, or someone that is just smarter and able to see those patterns. Yeah, what I had.
All right, so you're not hating, and that's okay. I would rather have you like it.
I can hate on J.K. Rowling if we need a little bit of vitriol.
No, I want to keep things more positive. Swing it back. But yeah, we delved into this cop territory here, so let's bring it back. We got a couple hands up, but also I put it in the chat. But I'm really interested in. So did Horowitz succeed? Was he trying to do something different here? And what did you get from it? I mean, is this just a great homage and kind of a meta form, and it's a good genre story, or is he saying something else here, and did you get something else from it? Wondering about that. I see Mark's hand is up. Mark, great to see you. I'm unmuting you. Talk to us.
Hey, so I can be the one hated this time because I didn't read the book. I have it, but I didn't get through it. So it's here in my hand. But I was just, with mysteries especially, I think the tricky thing is, like, everyone wants to solve it somewhere along the way. But then if it's too obscure a character, they get frustrated because it couldn't possibly have been that person. So you kind of want the means, the opportunity, and what's the third one? There's a third one. You want to have that for all three, or for all characters. You want to have all of those things in place, and then you want your own satisfaction to kind of meet the ending. So it's just a very interesting genre overall.
So a motive. You want them to have
right,
a motive.
Means, opportunity, and motive.
So
you want that with everyone, right?
Right.
So people might be disappointed because an obscure character ended up being the person who done it.
And to, like, I think Amy brought it up earlier, did anyone have nudist vicar on their bingo card for right. I mean, it's very 2020 to have a nudist vicar, but did anyone think, I mean, that was something that, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't the vicar and it was sort of explained away, and maybe it was almost mildly comical in a way, like, oh, you wouldn't expect the vicar to be a nudist or something, but and that's why they love this piece of land so much, because they can be free and be themselves. I got to ask you, Mark, is that Lisa's cap that you're wearing? Did she take your Tiger's cap? Or
yes, this is.
Okay, that's fantastic.
The best logo in all of sports, and maybe all of
it is
history for the Brewers.
I agree.
But I also wanted to catch people up. I know people have been really wanting to follow my progress on the backlist, but I'm 57 books now through the 220 plus that have been a part of Books and Bars. I've been trying to catch up. I'm on the West Coast now, but I read 5 of them over the break, and of the 5 that I picked up, I think Cat's Cradle was my favorite of the 5 from the backlist, and I'll keep people attuned to the progress I'm making on that front.
I love it, Mark. And so yeah, a lot of you here in the chat have not been with Books and Bars from like 16 years ago. It'll be 17 years in next month. It'll be 17 years for Books and Bars. But there's a few of you that have been around for a while. I see Kevin's in here. He's got his hand up next, which is great. But we've read a lot, and you can always go back. And we've only repeated by demand like a couple books, but for a while we didn't even repeat the authors. So we went like, I don't know, a really long time before I would even do the same author again. And then next thing you know, we were doing Neil Gaiman every year, but I don't know how that happened. So I would love to hear if anyone else goes back or anyone has or wants to know some of our favorites from the past. On that bookshop link for the Books and Bars bookshop, we have a section of some of my personal favorites, and I threw in also ones that I knew were well liked by the group. Whether that was you or different people at Bryant Lake Bowl or Astor Cafe or Amsterdam. But yeah, we've read a lot, and we've read some good ones. There's some that are not so good, and I'd be the first to admit it. But I'm glad that you like Cat's Cradle. That's, Vonnegut's incredible. That was like one of our early classics, like where I was like, can we do old books too? And I was like, we could do like one old one a year or something. I was so worried about like, oh, it won't sell. No one will buy it from the bookstore and all that stuff. But now I'm a little more free to, we can just read old stuff too, right? So thanks, Mark. Great to hear from you, and keep wearing that Brewers cap. It looks awesome on you. Kevin Matson, I was just talking about you. I'm unmuting you now.
Hi, Jeff. Yes, it's good to hear you. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks. I heard your shout out to me as one of the very long-term members here. So a couple quick things. First of all, rereading authors. I was very excited to see Cold Millions come up. Jess Walter, Beautiful Ruins, one of the best Books and Bars books ever, in my opinion. I love that book. I love the story. That's a great one. Let's see. Second of all, Maura was talking about being the hater, and I'm glad we don't have a hater. Like I said before, I don't feel like we need a hater. People can have to hate on the books. So whoever Maura is, I can't see her. I guess she's not live right now. She's got her picture up, but no hating. It's okay. We're good. Yes. And third of all, so this book, I didn't love this book, but I didn't hate it. So I didn't hate it. It was good. And the characters were good. To come back around to this book, I liked the way that the characters were written. I thought they were very interesting characters, even if I thought it ran maybe a little long, and maybe I don't read a lot of mysteries. But individually, the characters were kind of fun, in my opinion, to read about. Yeah, the vicar, the naturalist, that's a great little sub-twist to have them out in the kind of out in the wild in the glen there as naturists. I love that. So that was fun. That's what I got. So.
Thanks, Kevin. And I'm glad that we agree. Beautiful Ruins is one of my favorite Books and Bars reads, and it is one that we actually repeated so many years later that I don't think there were many people that overlapped in those, and it was different locations and stuff like that. But I started Cold Millions, and it's really interesting, really good. So hopefully you guys will do that one with us. That's the March 24th book, The Cold Millions by Jess Walter. I see Via's hand is up. Via, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you.
Talk to us.
Yeah, just a couple of points. I wanted to respond to a couple of people. First of all, starting out with thanks for answering my question about the handwritten note. I guess I had forgotten that obviously Charles, when he murdered Alan, he stole the handwritten copy and used that one. But right there, that's a little artificial. I remember the days at work where in the old days, you can guess how old I am. I used to have to write everything out longhand. And it's never that perfectly neat. So, that's a little unrealistic, the business about this perfectly handwritten page and transposing it into the letter. But at any rate, that's just another aspect of the genre question, kind of segues into that, because you asked that in the chat, Jeff, and also Donna's comments about genre, the overarching comments about genre. This, the Golden Age mysteries, the whodunits are a very artificial set of circumstances very unrealistic. And I generally like to read realistic literature, but there's something just extremely satisfying about it. We all know how artificial it is. You know, you've got a closed community, you've got a dozen people, and touching on what Mark said, all of those dozen people have a motive of some kind or other. You know, motive is like the main thing that everybody has. So it's got to, you know, most of the clues are about opportunity and, you know, a lot of where was everybody at the moment, what is their alibi, and so forth. But even though it's so artificial, you wonder, why is it so popular? I mean, they're very, very popular. And I think it is this, it appeals to many, many people to just have something all fit together so nicely in the end. And a lot of us like puzzles. I love puzzles. So, you know, it is a big puzzle. And there's something just so wonderfully satisfying about that. But the overarching commentary, I think this author used this vehicle as a way to make a lot of statements about genre and to make us kind of think about it too. You know, what is art? This particular author, Alan Conway, seemed to think that he was just like a nothing if he wasn't going to be a great literary writer. But then you read that little snippet from his book called The Slide, and it was just hilarious. I thought that was something else. It was just, I thought the author was poking fun also at literary writers, because it was just so obtuse and, you know, just these long sentences and long words, and just very full of himself in that little bit of writing. And that's what he felt made a great writer. Well, why isn't the mystery genre also considered great art? I mean, it's an art form and it's widely popular. People love it. They're entertained by it. And why can't we be entertained by the art that we read? So I don't know. I think he was making those kind of statements. He was poking fun at whodunits in those sections that Donna mentioned. I love that part with Detective Locke going off on, nobody gets murdered like this. You don't sit around and ask them really nice little questions about, you know, trying to undercut their alibi. You know, you find them on CCTV, and then, you know, people murder people in a rage. They don't plot it out all nicely with all these little clues like this. So he was really poking fun at it. And it made us think about it. So really enjoyed that. And let's see, was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh, on cop shows, what Kara and Evelyn were talking about, police shows and whether we'll still enjoy them in a different way. I'm sure they will be changed based on what's been going on in the world. But going back a long way, a real popular thing has always been the cops who are crooked within, you know, and then the cops who are good. And, you know, the good cops going, you know, trying to reveal the crooked cops and get them out of the system. That's a very popular genre. I've watched just tons of those kinds of shows. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but recently a lot of them are British and foreign shows, but also American shows. And, you know, this goes back to Serpico and all that. That's just, that's something very satisfying to watch too. It's, you know, you have the good cops and the bad cops, and hopefully those bad crooked cops are exposed and thrown out. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mia. Hey, Pete, is there anything in the chat that we should bring to the larger group? Anything interesting worth discussing? I mean, I know there is, but anything you've noticed, Pete, my co-host? Are you with me?
Well, yeah, no, I'm here. One thing we were was going on a little bit with, you know, there was a lot of good books suggested in there, but then like there was the Kara and I were kind of talking about the a Vonnegut-like thing, because I forget which one is it where Vonnegut's arguing with one of his characters and he's God, and you know, and that they go back and forth. But I thought there was early on, I thought there was a Vonnegut element to this, that like, oh my God, the author's shoving his own real life into the book. And that's why I think that's why I like the ending with the anagrams, because he was really shoving a lot of stuff the author was Atticus Punt was doing a lot of the chat for him. And then but in terms of, I'm not.
Is there anything from all the recommendations, any ones that you keep seeing that you want to shout out? We've talked about P.D. James. Any others? We can.
Agatha Christie.
I can come back to you. Agatha Christie, of course.
And then I'll do a more thorough. Come back to me.
I will. All
I'll
right,
do a good
Andrew.
count here.
Thanks, Pete. Andrew, are you still with us? I'm unmuting you.
I think Pete just admitted to not paying very close attention to the chat. Just saying.
I think I caught him off guard. Yeah.
I knew that was coming as soon as you asked the question. I just wanted to mention that I think that, I think that one of the nice things about this book is that it was, it realized that it was making fun of itself a little bit. And, I think a general rule of thumb is if you see it on TV and it's come from someplace else, it's probably trash. I mean, most of the entertainment that we, indulge in is not that great in the long run. That's why we don't end up going back to it. The Fifth Horseman of the Apocalypse is probably, reality TV, except for MasterChef, because, MasterChef can't mess with that. That's good stuff right there. So, I mean, most of popular culture is entertainment, not art. And from an entertainment standpoint, it's what do you like? What piques your interest, keeps you running, and things like that. I would not say this was high art. This is a clever book, interesting, clever in the way that stand-up comedy. While it's an art form, it's an ephemerate art form. It's something that you do. And doesn't have to necessarily last. I love the comment about slide, which is just it's so, like here's something that's going to live forever, the way that Odysseus might live forever, or the Iliad might last forever, or something like that. Everybody wants that. And meanwhile, there really isn't anything wrong with watching a little Dave Chappelle, enjoying the popular culture moment of it, and then moving on, and not necessarily saying this is the most important thing that I've ever heard. So I like this book. I like this book because it was entertaining. It's very unlikely I would ever say really people should really get into this genre because it's really going to challenge them in some way. It just isn't that challenging, and that's why we like it. That's why it's going to end up on Masterpiece. It'll probably be great.
Yeah, Andrew, it's funny because I think for me, it's just the one of the qualities I'm looking for in the books that we pick is this discussion worthy aspect. And I want to make sure that there's something about, we can all enjoy it, it could be whatever, a genre piece. But if we don't have much to say about it, then, I got to look, maybe I should pick something else, like that kind of a thing. But I love things that, I like to champion things like comedy, things that don't get enough respect or awards. Maybe they're popular, but they don't get like critical, acclaim. Speaking of which, I saw it brought up in the chat. I got to say that the last two things I watched were not, they're not going to make I don't expect them to win any awards, but I bet a lot of you watched them and enjoyed them too. Bridgerton.
Oh yeah.
Highly recommend. Yeah.
That's
something that's something to watch with your significant other or, just enjoy on your own. Very enjoyable. It sets a new standard for ways that you can use a stairway in a stairwell, and the use of popular music, but like with a string quartet. By the time you got the layer of I won't spoil it, but like a couple is doing it on the stairs to a string quartet version of a Taylor Swift song, all in. Good times.
No,
the
thing is I'm totally fine with, enjoying things, and there are really good TV shows and things like that, but you got to take it in context. And, books greater than TV. as far as I'm concerned, period. You know, almost the worst book that you're going to read is probably better than the most TV shows that you're going to see out there. And certainly they were less expensive to create. So
and the other thing I'm watching that I laugh out loud and I completely enjoy, and it's especially funny to watch with my high school age son, Cobra Kai. And I will put this up as an example of how to revisit pre-existing intellectual property and characters, especially from the 80s. And then to not hear, not think about them or see anything new from them for many, many years, but then to come back. I think especially season 1, what they did with Cobra Kai is kind of amazing. Now it's so over the top and just like, I laugh out loud at most of it, but it's also touching and good.
The funny thing is that you have hit on something perfect. I mean, I wouldn't give up my experience with Karate Kid for anything in the world. I mean, hello, crane kick. Yeah. I still get chills.
But have you tried Cobra Kai?
Yeah, I have not watched Cobra Kai, but now I might just have to.
I think you should. I think you would like what they do with it. I think it's really really cool and inventive way to revisit something from the past, as opposed to what we're seeing just like remakes and reboots of everything. They actually take it in like, okay, these characters are this age. Now they're this age. How would they act? And if they had kids and they have regrets, they have things they're proud of. Maybe they're living in the past on certain things. It's really cool. But yeah, books over TV for sure. That's why we're here. And that's why I want to find things that we can talk about. And hopefully we did. I'm wondering who hasn't had a chance, and if there's things you want to talk about how Horowitz wrote this, any of the other characters. Did anyone figure it out completely? Was it like too easy? Anyone? Did anyone raise your hand? Yeah, I see Evelyn's hand is up. Evelyn, I'm unmuting you.
I was very disappointed in the son-in-law, or the son being the Roger, whatever, being the murderer. I don't know. I didn't believe it. I know like the sort of intrinsically evil person is one of the tropes, I think, sometimes in these mystery novels, where somebody's like true evil nature is revealed. I'm not really sure if that, maybe it exists. I don't know. But I thought it was the artist. I thought it was Red Wing's husband, Arthur. I thought it would have been really great poetic justice that he had gone and killed Sir whatever the guy, Sir Pie, with the sword with which he ruined his best painting, his best work of art. I thought that would have been poetic justice and like a good enough motive, just based on like, all of like the disappointment he had over time. But I guess that wasn't to be. So sadness.
That's all right. Anyone else have any other thoughts on how this stacks up to others? Do you want to read more mysteries with us? Remember the old January romp that we used to do, where I would try to pick something that was lighter and maybe more fun around this time of year? I was kind of hoping this would fall into that. A lot of you maybe weren't around for the old calling it January romp. It was very big. It was a term that was used quite a bit when we were at Indeed. I think Indeed might have been where the January romp was born. And then people were really looking like, what's the January romp going to be? That sort of a thing. So I don't know, maybe this qualified as one. I see Kevin. Kevin, I'm unmuting you.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call this a January romp per se, and I also happen to read The Chain at the same time. I don't know, like that doesn't feel really rompy, You
don't feel The Chain was rompy?
Yeah, I don't feel The Chain was rompy.
Well, The Chain is our March 10th book. So
okay.
So it doesn't have to be. Although actually I recently read it too, and I thought the chain actually was maybe more January romp than this, because, well, we'll talk about it on March 10th. We'll talk about it on March 10th. Yeah, I don't want to ruin it. You should read the chain and come back and talk about it on March 10th and tell us if you thought it was rompy or not. If you know at all what the chain is about, it might be a stretch for you to even imagine that how it could become a romp, but stick with it. Maybe you'll find out. So next time is The Hotel New Hampshire by John Irving, and Sue Warner. I don't know if she's here tonight, but she better be here next time. I see her. She's here. Because Sue and I have been talking. We're both big John Irving fans, and we sort of agreed on like what some of the all-time classic John Irvings were, but then she threw out Hotel New Hampshire, and I had not read that one yet. Didn't know that it was up there with Cider House Rules, Owen Meany, Garp. I mean, I put Hotel New Hampshire up there with those. I think those are the top four. So it's Hotel New Hampshire, Garp, Cider House Rules, and Owen Meany. If you've read anything by John Irving, or if you haven't read John Irving, now's your chance to read this one or reread it. And maybe you've read it in the past. Maybe you just want to refresh yourself a bit. But please join us in 2 weeks. That'll be January 20th. And it's the Hotel New Hampshire. And what do you got there? Bob Ross Masterpiece IPA. That looks good. The old Stack Deck. Yeah. Stack Deck. That was the closest brewery to my old place of employ. I actually thought about doing Books and Bars there, but I thought it was too loud and it didn't have enough of a private room for us. But that looks like a good beer. All right. So
Jeff, I don't want to interrupt you, Jeff, but we're talking about beer.
Go ahead.
I remember there was a time when we used to start these off by telling people what we're drinking and then talking about the beer. And it seems like we kind of lost that. I mean, I think maybe we should get back into that, like telling people what we're drinking. Because it's Bob Ross time. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Bob Ross.
Okay, so let me ask you, Kevin, I want you to throw it out there then. What's your I would do a band and beverage pairing is what I used to do, because I made a playlist also, and we would play it live, like it would be played before the event would start. So how about you tell me, what's the beverage for Magpie Murders? What would be it doesn't have to be a beer. That's a thing. If we're at a brewery, it would be nice to say a beer, but it can be a cocktail, whatever. Anyone have one? What's a suggested cocktail pairing for Magpie Murders? And then I will commit to throwing out more of these or asking you for them. Maybe they can be part of our icebreakers for our ongoing books for 2021. And then a band. So Magpie Murders. Anyone have a beverage idea? Anyone?
Can I start this, Jeff? And then I'll turn over.
Please do. Please do.
I think like Magpie Murders probably has to have some kind of it as a mystery or something like that. It's got to have a cocktail. It's not a beer. I mean, it's a mystery, something where you like sit in in the library like solving a puzzle. So it's got to have some kind of gin or something. And I feel like the music, like a band, probably has to be something a little bit. It can't be too modern. It's got to be something maybe like, I like the National. Maybe could like the National do something for this? I don't know. So that's my pick would be like some kind of a gin cocktail, maybe with the National as a band. So that's my. So I don't know. What is anybody else? What is anybody else?
I definitely like where you're going with the gin cocktail, and I think it's got to be something English, British. And so that's what I was saying with the band too. I mean, I love the National, but if I'm thinking maybe it should be a band from that side of the pond too, if we want to keep it to that. Does anyone else have any suggested beverage or band pairings I'm seeing some in the chat. Gin and tonic and the
blowing up.
Yeah. It's blowing up. What do you see? What do you see, Pete? I see bitters, something with grenadine.
And further up,
Robin Hitchcock. Yeah.
Earl Grey with the tiniest dash of Scotch. I think the unusual thing is they're adding Earl Grey to it this time. Cognac, gin and tonic. Yeah, a lot of gin.
All right. So here's the thing. I will get the chat, and I will come up with something based on your suggestions. And when I post the video for this on YouTube, and when I post maybe even if Rebecca watches the video, she'll want to do a sketch note. we'll see. But I'll post some stuff on this, and I'll include, kick off 2021 with bringing back the beverage, at least the beverage suggestion. Whether we get to the band playlist, maybe I'll hold back until we can meet in person again, because otherwise it would just be me sharing stuff on Spotify, which I could do. I like that a lot of authors coming up. We have The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. That author made a great playlist for it. So I'll be sure to share that. And much like we had the playlist for Ready Player 2, a lot of times now the publisher, the author is doing their own on that. But we can definitely get the beverage market. That can be us, because we are still books and bars, right? Pete, anything else from the chat now that you've had a chance? Anything before we sign off tonight?
It's embarrassing. Most of it's me, but there's some good wit in there. So it's been fun seeing everyone's comments, but that Hotel New Hampshire is a movie, and there's some argument that this is a January romp, Magpie Murders. But I remember the January romp was controversial because you had to keep pointing out that it was a January romp. Some people weren't that excited.
You mean because people... Yeah, well, let me tell you, there's a lot of romping, if you will, in Hotel New Hampshire, if that helps. I wouldn't call it a romp, but there's a certain lot of bed hopping. Don't fall for that movie, though. Watch it only after you've read the book, because that movie is about 20% of what's in the book, and the book is phenomenal, of Hotel New Hampshire. Much like his other books, I don't feel they translate that well to film, because there's just so much there. They would be much better to be a series. I saw Cider House Rules as a 6-hour play over 2 nights in LA. And that was a good way to see Cider House Rules. But the 2-hour movie version of it is okay, but it just scratches the surface of what's in the book, much like the version of Hotel New Hampshire. So if you've seen the movie, don't judge it based on that. Please check it out. And join us in 2 weeks. And then we have our schedule set through the end of March, and I'm looking for ideas for what we should do in April. Some of the ones I threw out there were Leave the World Behind. Let's see, what else? A Burning. I'm looking at my list up here. Luster. Got a bunch of great ideas for the rest of the year, and I'm kind of planning them out. So I'm hoping that we do get back to in person, and then that would probably get me back to trying to get more paperbacks again, but we'll see. So I have a bunch of paperback release dates I'm trying to juggle around when we can do these things. And but for now, we're still twice a month. And I hope to see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. And hopefully tomorrow we wake up to America that's ready to get to work and be a little bit better than it was lately. But great seeing you guys. Thanks so much. Good night.